Work her feet, heels. Now we can just stretch. Okay, we'll come down the anterior compartment here. And this really opens us up for those of us who like to do nice long strokes. We can go all the way down the body and up again and trail out the feet. Now for working the feet, I can stand here comfortably in an upright posture and work her feet. Cross stroking. What it was like if my client's feet are big enough, I like to interlace my fingers between their toes and get a nice stretch that way. Nice stretch here. And then nice completing nerve stroke. We just draw it right out. And we'll repeat that on the other side. And so now I've finished working Danielle face down. I'm going to roll her over. I'll take away armrests. I'll take away whatever adjusters may be underneath the body cushion. And now I'm just going to come around here. I'm going to block the lower and upper sheet with my thighs, and I'm going to hold these. So Danielle, you can just roll over, and when you do, make a right turn and just kind of scoot down a little bit, just a few inches. Down a little bit more so your head is at the upper end of the face support. And the leg support should be just about in the right place. I might have to move that up just a little bit. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Now I'm just going to take the shelf and the face support away. So again, using the shelf or the extension on the end of the table, which sometimes is called a foot extension, but we put it at the head end for the face support, really makes that transition very easy from face down to face up or face up to face down. In this case, I'm going to show you the rolling over with the draping without having that extension in case you don't have that. So simply, I'm just going to have Danielle raise up her head, and she can just rest her head there for a moment. I'm going to take the lower sheet and kind of hold it behind her so that I don't expose her breast. Have her lift from her elbows just slightly, and that's how you're going to have your client give you a little release so that you can move that chest and pelvic supports forward even with the head end of the table. At which point, again, it's just a matter of rolling over. And this time you want to instruct your subject not to move down. Keep your head at the head end of the table, Daniel. Make a right turn, and I'll just keep you completely covered. There you are. So your head is at the head end of the chest support. Now this is where you're going to have to concern yourself with repositioning the leg support, and that's right on the tabletop. So I'm just going to slide that up under her knees, okay? So that's the rolling over from face down to face up without the extension on the table. After I roll my client over, I'm going to work on the lower extremities. And while I do that, I want to have nice support for her neck and stabilized positioning for her head. So I'm adding the crescent in a way that supports her neck. If you have the adjusters, which I have in my table pockets, I'm going to take the large wedge on either side. I'm going to add the large wedge to make a little support, a little place for the arm, so that now my client's arm with the fingers just right over the end of this large wedge is supported in a way that decreases the angle of departure from the shoulder and allows a nice, comfortable additional width to the table so the client doesn't feel as if their arm may be sliding off the table. I always like to add the large wedges and use them in that way. Another consideration here with the bright lights of the studio, I've added a little special element here for Danielle so that the lights aren't bothering her. I use these also in my studio, just a nice sense of pressure over the eyes. Also, I've added a little heart right over her heart, just a little pressure right there. And I think clients appreciate that extra attention. Using the body cushion requires a dialogue with your guest or your client. You want to make sure that they're not experiencing any pressure on any specific part of their body. And in the face-up position, the key consideration, you want to make sure that there's no pressure in the low back or on the hips. So I have to ask that question. Danielle, do you feel any pressure on your low back or on your hips?
No.
Okay, great. If your client did experience that pressure and they told you about that, you have the tools. If you have the adjusters, you have the ability to correct for that. The first thing to try, make sure that the neck is not extended with the head back. If it is, you're going to want to use the small wedge and place it underneath the chest support, between the table and the chest support, to elevate the head more. The other consideration is that you're going to have them raise their hips and place a long rectangle right underneath the hips. Sometimes that additional consideration of elevation, which also, by the way, can be supplied with a large wedge if you're not using them under the arms, can be very helpful in alleviating any pressure that the guest or client may experience. So now we'll drape the lower extremity. I'm pulling the sheet underneath, and if you want to, you can have the client hold it there for security. I'm going to add a little lubricant, and we'll just go right down here. I'm going around the greater trochanter again, and we'll just move the knee medial, and that just lets me go right down the IT band and around the greater trochanter again. So we're working the quads here. And again, nice posture for my back. I don't want any pressure on my back. I'm making sure to transfer any weight in my upper torso through my hands, through my arms, in a way that's easy for me. Okay? Rolling the knee lateral, I'm going to work down medial aspect. Okay. And one thing I like to do is, with the split leg support, if you have that, it lets you actually move one half of the support right up under the thigh. And we're as close to the ischial tuberosity as possible. And this makes a nice foundation for compression. So we're just rolling across the quads, and the positioning and support just kind of idealizes this without imposing any transfer of force into the pelvis or the low spine. Another thing with the leg support, I can just take it away altogether and just let it go right off the table, and I can work in this way. It works really well. Long strokes. And now, another way I like to work, I can just bring the knee up into a 90, and I have the leg support on its end, and so now we have the knee in a 90-degree flexion. You can just work that way as well. So this just lets you work in a whole variety of different ways as you may choose. Just lay it down, and when it is down, the angle is toward the hips. And now I'm just going to work the anterior compartment between the tibia and fibula. We've already worked the feet, we've already worked the calves, now we're just on the anterior aspect. Around the knee, we'll go up, around the greater trochanter. Nice long stroke, pull out the energy. When working the lower extremities, we want to remember how the body cushion positioning idealizes mobilizing the hip. So we're mobilizing the hip freely, involving only the musculature of the hip without imposing any forces on the low spine. And of course we have our guest client draped very well for this, allowing them that privacy. It also idealizes stretches, so we can provide a nice stretch in that way. Very good.